Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. As mentioned on the program today, we're talking about the Ring series, two specific books, The Ring of Truth, The Ring of Courage. The author is Medha Upadhyay. She was born January 1st, 2002 in Mountain View, California, currently lives in San Jose, California with her mom, dad, younger sister, attending Joaquin Miller Middle School as an 8th grader. She also served as student council officer, dividing her time between reading, writing, and swimming. The writing part of that we're going to talk about today, The Ring of Truth, The Ring of Courage, known together as the Ring series. Medha, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us on the show today.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed having the chance to read both of the books. And let's talk about why you got started. What usually at your age, you're just sort of reading books and thinking, yeah, maybe someday that might be fun, but I'm going to read them now. When did you decide, you know what, I got a story in me. I would like to start writing myself.
As a young reader, reading was one of the best things that happened to me. I loved to read. I used to read all the time. And I guess I just got so full of imagination and stories and characters that I just had to let it all out some way. And once I started writing, I realized that this was a great way for me to share all the wonderful ideas and thoughts that were in my head.
What inspired? The first book is The Ring of Truth. And by the way, the website is very simple, theringseries.com. That's Medha's website. You go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly to the website. What was the inspiration for the first book, for The Ring of Truth?
As a 3rd grader, I remember hearing about the Japanese tsunami of 2011, and that really triggered something inside of me. It was such a huge thing, and yet there was so little that I knew about it. I was so I didn't really know what was happening. So I just made up my own version of what might have happened, using all these things that I knew, like magic and adventure and mystery. And I just put it together in this little story that I really liked.
The first book is The Ring of Truth, and let's talk about some of the characters and just give us sort of a brief rundown of what we find in the book. Let's talk about Rhea, first of all, and I'm wondering as I'm reading about Rhea, is that Medha? Are there similarities? Is this you're writing about?
Rhea is a wonderful person. She's so kind and generous. Of course, she's not perfect. She does make mistakes. She and I do have some qualities in common, but of course, she's been tested to a much higher degree. For example, I don't really know if I would have reacted the same way in all those situations that she's been through, but I would like to think that we do have a few qualities in common at least.
Yeah, the Ring of Truth, and you talk about, and she has a number of obstacles, starting with, talk about the stroller incident, because this is where this all started with the ring and this whole mystery began.
Yeah, so Rhea was at a water park for her brother's birthday, and this little baby was drowning. Her stroller got into a pool. So Rhea, of course, reacted right in a flash, and she was able to save the little baby from drowning, which is a great act for her, and that's how she earned this magical ring for her act of bravery.
And then she soon discovers that disasters do follow. This isn't like, okay, I've got this magical ring and life goes on and it's very happy thereafter. There were other obstacles that she came about. The ring keeps disappearing too, doesn't it? She has to keep trying to get it back.
Yeah, she soon finds out that an evil devil is after it. He wants to use those great powers of the ring for havoc and destruction, and every time Rhea lets it slip out of her sight, there's a lot of bad consequences.
Talk about the devil and the very interesting name you gave him. What name do you call the devil? And talk about how you developed this character.
For this devil, I named him Hevrufane La Mort, which means cause of death. So Hevrufane comes from a German root and it means cause, while La Mort is French and it means death. So this was this devil's way of putting together these exotic languages into one very direct and strong message to show his intentions. He's, of course, a very cruel and cold at heart. He is one of Rhea's primary antagonists throughout the book.
You're listening to This Week in America. Our guest on the program, Medha Upadhyay. You can get all the information on her books, The Ring of Truth and The Ring of Courage, at theringseries.com. Go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you can link on directly. Let's talk about some of the other characters. How do you go about naming the characters?
I like to name the characters after people that I know, mainly, especially my close friends or family. Including them in my story is a way of honoring them for me. I hope that they enjoyed it. I named the character Rhea after one of my young friends who was recently diagnosed with leukemia, as a way of honoring her fight against evil.
And we all hope that she comes along well. They're making such strides in that, and we will remember her in our thoughts. Let's talk a little bit about, as you're writing the story, there are a number of lessons in here. Talk about the takeaway as someone reads the book. What are some of the lessons that you present to them in a very entertaining way?
I would hope that after reading the Ring series, one could understand the way that you should make decisions. And we all know what's right and what's wrong, yet we sometimes get confused or mistaken. And this book is just a way of reminding us that you know what's right, you know what's wrong. Just make the right decisions.
And you talk about it, and it comes out in the book, the decisions we make really define who we are, don't they?
Yeah, it's not just what you say or what you want to be, it's what you actually do. Your actions speak the loudest.
Locations are a very important part of the Ring series, the Ring of Truth, the Ring of Courage. How did you go about changing the various destinations, ending up in San Francisco?
As I started researching about tsunamis and why they took place, I realized that the majority of them took place in the Ring of Fire, which is a ring of lithospheric plates around the Pacific Ocean. So Rhea's father is an environmental engineer, and his newest promotion requires that the family moves every 6 months around the Ring of Fire so that he can study the Pacific Ocean. So that's where Rhea's constant globe-trotting comes from. She moves from India to Indonesia to Japan, and then finally lands in San Francisco as her father's job takes them across the world.
What kind of response are you getting? I've read reviews, and people literally of all ages really are caught up in the story, the development of characters. Talk a little bit about the response that you're getting. I mean, at a very young age, you decide to write a book. You suddenly write a book. You're actually holding a copy in your hands, and people are reading it, and you're getting the response. What type of feeling does that give you that people are reading and enjoying and learning something from the Ring series?
I'm so glad for everybody that has read the book and given me their wonderful feedback. Positive or negative, I really do appreciate any advice or feedback that people may have. Generally speaking, most people seem to enjoy the book and the plot as well as the characters. One particular incident I remember was one day when I was coming home from swim practice, a young girl came running up to me, one who I've never seen before, and she had a copy of my book in her hand, and she said, "Please, can you autograph this for me?" And it was like a really wonderful feeling that I had to know that people were looking up to me and trying to become more like me.
You know, that's interesting because as you're growing up and reading, you are looking up to the writers, the people that inspired you as you were reading, and suddenly you've got people reading and being inspired by you. That has to feel a sense of responsibility too, doesn't it? And maybe motivation to get back to the typewriter, the computer, and keep writing.
Yes, of course. I do feel like I have a certain obligation to continuing my story for all those readers who are still wondering what might have happened in the future.
When you finish The Ring of Truth, and we're talking about the Ring series, The Ring of Truth, book number 1, The Ring of Courage, book number 2. Medha Upadhyay, our guest on This Week in America. The website is theringseries.com. When you finished the Ring of Truth and then decided to do the second book, The Ring of Courage, talk about the decision that went into that.
Of course, as soon as I finished The Ring of Truth, I was again caught up in my new characters and wondering, oh, what would happen next? And but it took me a while to come up with a plot that I thought was, oh yeah, this is going to make a good story. But once I had that good inspiration, I started writing as soon as I could. I feel like I definitely became a better writer by the time I got to the Ring of Courage. What with the gap of around a year, I definitely matured and became a better writer.
Talk a little bit about how you write. Do you sit down with an outline? How flexible is that? The mechanics of writing. You've got the stories, and now you've sort of got to make sense of these stories that you've got, that you kick around in your mind, and you need to put those on paper. How do you go about that process?
So once I come up with like a general plot or idea, I definitely make sure to write it down and then I start breaking it up. Like, what would be the smaller details, or do I need any new characters? And I usually do an outline for longer stories along with a plan for each chapter so that I don't miss any important moments or scenes. But I'm very flexible as I go through the story because sometimes new ideas come to my mind and I would like to incorporate them, which means I need to go back to the planning board and change things up sometimes.
Yeah, how important is that? The flexibility factor, the fact that okay, this is not where I wanted to go, but sometimes the story writes itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, sometimes what you originally had in mind is not what it ends up being because as you're going through the process, you realize this isn't really working. I kind of need to go back and fix things so I can come up with a better product.
In the book, at the end, in acknowledgments, you talk about family, your little sister who you're very close to. And let's talk about some of the people that shaped who you are and the writer that you are. Obviously, you've got a very loving and supporting family that's encouraged you to write the Ring series.
Yeah, I definitely say that a lot of my support came from my family, from my mom who helped me write when I was younger, from my dad who was always there to support me in whatever I picked, and from my little sister for just being there and never questioning too much.
Yeah, and that support has to be important because you are off sort of, if you're not in a separate room and sitting at a computer writing, you're at least thinking the story through, and you really need people that are supporting. And you mentioned friends as well. How important is it to have a good source of support with the friend system that you have?
I feel like my friends are definitely some of the best in the world. They're so supportive and loving, and they're just loyal, and they never um, leave me behind. And they're so great, and I'm so thankful to have them.
How about teachers that influenced you? What's that like when you've got teachers and you suddenly the teacher's finding out Medha's writing a book here and I've had a chance to read it and this is like really good. What's the impact of teachers that they've had on you so far up through and into the eighth grade?
My teachers have all been so wonderful and great, and they were definitely some of the first people who encouraged me and pushed me after my family. They definitely gave me a lot of skills throughout the years to help me become not just a better writer, but a better person. And many of them have congratulated me for my work in writing, and they've definitely helped me a lot.
And you mentioned the coaches and the swimming. You're part of the Santa Clara Swim Club, and you say so much of me is defined by what I do in the pool. Talk about that. The fact is, as I'm reading your background, you really are well-rounded, and I'm assuming that that has a lot to do with the successes writing because you're curious. You're probably always like taking notes of things that you're seeing in real life that you may be able to incorporate in stories. Talk about that, the athletic part of your life, the swimming part.
Swimming is something I've only picked up in the past like 5 years. It's been such a great experience to be an athlete, and it's changed so much about me. I've started to focus more on like my diet, my health, my sleep, and I've definitely learned to appreciate dedication, perseverance, and hard work. My coaches and teammates have really pushed me, and I've really learned a lot from them too.
We're talking about The Ring of Truth, The Ring of Courage. It's part of the Ring series. You can find all the information at Medha's website, theringseries.com. Go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you can link on directly. A couple of minutes left in the program, and I would struggle if somebody would say, you sound like you really enjoyed these books. Who were they designed for? Probably not old men like me, but I'm reading the book, and I'm really fascinated with how you went about putting it together. Who is the book targeted for?
This book was mainly written for younger readers, though I do feel that almost anyone could enjoy it, of course. I tried to weave in morals and lessons along with action and adventure, all based around an engaging plot with some interesting twists at the end. I also feel that this book could teach children moral lessons. Also, I tried to include some interesting facts about real life, such as lithospheric plates, astronomy, tsunamis, black holes. And most of all, I just want to teach young kids the lesson of good versus evil and how to go about solving these kind of problems that we have today.
A couple of minutes left in the show. You mentioned before that there's the tsunami, and that caught your attention years ago as you were reading about that in the newspaper. How important is that to be, in being a successful writer, to be able to watch what's going on in the news, to be able to absorb what you're hearing in the classroom, what you're seeing on television in the news, what you're reading in the newspaper, that type of thing? I almost think you probably carry a notebook around where you've got some new ideas you're going to write down to see if you can incorporate these into the storyline at some point. How important is that to really be aware of the world going on around you?
Of course, my stories are fictional. Not everything is 100% true. But no matter where your magic or inspiration comes from, it should be slightly grounded or based in the real world, because really, truth is stranger than fiction. And what happens in real life is something that everybody should know about. No matter how much you love magic or fantasy or adventure, you should always be grounded, and you should definitely know about what's happening in the real world as well. And for young readers especially, weaving in the elements of science or news into fantasy is a great way of engaging them into this at an early age.
As I'm reading the Ring series, I'm learning things in the book, and I'm wondering, as you're writing it, were you learning as you went along too? Here you have the chance to explore different countries, different cultures. Was this a learning experience for you as you were doing the research? Almost like another class that you were going to, I would think.
Yes, of course. Learning about all these wonderful cultures and the science behind tsunamis, and it was a great experience, and I definitely learned a lot. And the majority of my writing time was also research time, because I didn't know everything before I started. I had to make sure that everything I said or assumed was correct before I put it down on paper.
You know, it's interesting. I read an interview, and so many people who try to write, or whether it's done like you're doing for commercial purposes, or whether it's done in working on a paper at school, you always hit that period where you sort of hit the wall. And you say, what, if you hit the wall, sometimes you just have to take a break. On the other hand, if you got it going, don't stop. Keep it going. If you're on a roll, keep that roll going.
Yes, of course, because while the ideas are coming, you should get them out of paper before they die in your head. But sometimes if you've been going for too long, you do need a break. Your brain gets tired of thinking over the same things over and over again, and it's just like a muscle in your body. It gets tired and needs a break. You can change it up by doing something different for a while, and that'll help you when you get back to it again.
Medha is in the 8th grade, as we mentioned. 2 books, the Ring series. The books are The Ring of Truth, followed by The Ring of Courage. All the information available. The books are available all across the country. Information and the books available at the website, theringseries.com. What does the future hold for you? What are your plans, immediate plans? Because I'm sure you're thinking about or probably working on another book. But what would you like to do in the future?
In the near future, I do hope to finish up my 3rd book, which I've started. I would also like to, of course, make sure that it's better than the first 2 by investing my time into writing skills and making sure that it has better plot and more engaging characters.
We'll be looking forward to book number 3 in the series. Our guest in the program, Medha Upadhyay. She is the author of the Ring series. 2 books so far. A third one going to be in the future, and we'll have her back in the program to talk about that. The Ring of Truth, book number 1. The Ring of Courage, book number 2. Medha, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. Excellent job with the 2 books in the Ring series, and we're looking forward to book number 3. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you so much. I hope to see you again as well.
You're listening to This Week in America, and once again, our guest on the program, Medha Upadhyay. Her books are available at her website, theringseries.com. You're listening to This Week in America. Of course, all the information available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us.